Welcome to another watercolor painting video. Today we are painting sunflowers in watercolor. So I painted these previously in oil and they're starting to actually wilt a little. They're real and are over a week old now as far as being cut flowers. So anyway, let's get started. I am going to use a block of cold press watercolor, and it's actually rough, I guess, which is extra thick and bumpy, and it's 7 by 10, so I'm gonna cut it, or I'm actually measuring out a 5 by 7 piece so that's what's going to be framed, and that's kind of a more standard size for framing. So that's the size I'm going to make the painting fit in. And I have to apologize that I didn't realize that only half of the paper is showing, but in a minute I'll realize that and move it back down so you can see the whole thing. Anyway, so I'm just doing some light pencil sketching here of the leaves and the sunflower. Kind of like an off-center type of casual composition. And if you're looking for a hyper-realistic painting, both oil and watercolor are great for hyper-realism, but this one's going to be just more loose and a little bit funky. I'm just working on trying to capture the coloring and just the organic quality of the flower. So I have these new little flower petal porcelain trays. I'm not quite sure what I think of them. This is actually the first time I've ever used them. But the one thing that attracted me to them is my plastic ones stain so much that, especially with gouache, I thought, well, maybe the porcelain is easier to clean. I just don't like the deepness of the wells, and there's really no place to mix it, so I like to have a lot more wells available for mixings. So I do have 2 of these, so I might have to use one just for mixing if I decide to use them, or maybe just use these for wells for the paint and then have a separate surface for mixing. Okay, so let's get started. Why not start with the middle, some darks. Sometimes I prefer using lights first in watercolor, but I mean, you can't go wrong with the middle of the sunflower. You gotta start somewhere. And so we got yeah, I guess I'm gonna work on some leaves to mix up. This is the green in the middle, I forget the name, but it was discontinued, and it was by Holbein, and they tried to copy some ancient Japanese pigments that are, because watercolor's been done so long in Japan and China. I think actually it was a Chinese watercolor that they had made a series of kind of like antique colors, and they were discontinuing them. So I was trying it out, and so I'm mixing it with a little bit of the yellow, and it's really pretty. It's a pretty green color, I admit. And then I've got a cad medium and cad orange. The red is called geranium red by Old Holland, and it's a really pretty red, and it really is the color of geraniums. I love that kind of salmony. It's right between a pink and a red, like a really clean, more on the cool side red. So it's a really nice red. and that's what I use for most of the oranges in these sunflowers. And then I also use the bright orange, which is right out of the tube definitely way too intense. I think that one thing I will say about the surface I'm painting on, which is a maple plywood panel, which has been really nice. I had some cut at the hardware store, but they're really nice for when you want to tape to the board, tape down paper that you've soaked, and that's really nice because you've got a huge surface. But I'm finding these kind of awkward. I need to be able to tilt them so that I can use gravity. I know Jackson Pollock, I read a book about his paintings once and how he preferred painting flat because he didn't want to have a side to his painting. He wanted it to be so abstracted that there wasn't even a brush stroke, or like a normal painting, you have a top and a bottom and two sides. He wanted there not to be a side, to be very freeform. And that has its purpose, but when you're painting something that's real, like plants and flowers and people, I really think that, especially with watercolor, maybe not so much with oil paint, not so much that you have a top and bottom, but I'm finding even painting flat and having the energy of the paint just pool, it just kind of feels like it's kind of out in space there. And I feel like even it doesn't have to even be 45-degree angle. If I just could tilt this a little, and I will do that next time, just to have the tension of the gravity pulling on the paint, I think would help give it some strength. And I mentioned that before when I did the wildfire, and I definitely feel like with the wildfire, to get that energy, you need, in the matter, you need to have that tension. So that's just something to keep in mind. I do like to do small oil paintings flat a lot of times, but I'm definitely noticing that drips, the way they pool and the water pools, you know, it does depend on the effect you're going for, but I think that in the future I'm going to do more and more of these floral paintings with the surface tilted, so that I'll have the tension and the capability for the paint to be pulling towards the earth. Alright, so I'm adding some different greens. The blue I have is ultramarine blue, and then I also have Payne's gray and a transparent earth. It might be like a red ochre color, but it's a transparent color. It's not an opaque ochre, so I'm pretty sure it said red ochre on the tube though, and I believe it's by Old Holland. So I really struggle with the oil painting tubes. I found if I travel with them and they're in my checked bag, they all pop open and dry, and it's not just that it dries around the tube, but like the entire tube dries, and I end up throwing out this $10 or $20 tube of paint. That's just super hard to get the hard paint out of those little tiny holes. And I don't know if, you know, I think I have actually split them in two before at that point, you know, when I feel like they're beyond repair. So as a last resort, I'll literally just split them open and have a one-time use of them. I suppose you could maybe get them out and put them in some sort of tub, try to reconstitute them. I just haven't wanted to work that hard at it, I guess. So yeah, like I said, this isn't hyperrealism, and the details, I didn't want to get too stuffy with them. This really rough paper I think is good for a sunflower because it's such a sturdy plant, unlike some of the more, for example, I've got Queen Anne's lace in my house right now, and I think that would be better on maybe a hot press paper because it's so delicate with a lot of hairy and just very fragile flowers and lacy like leaves and buds. But there is some coarseness to, definitely I can see it in the leaves, that they're starting to feather a little bit because of the super coarse texture. So I'm just going in at the very end and trying to add some yellows. I thought it was a little too orange, and these I'm just laying over the top. And the cadmium, fortunately, is a little bit opaque for watercolor, so if you have it thick enough, it will, it's still watercolor, it's not gouache, but it'll give it kind of a gouache type look. Anyway, I'm just going to leave some music for the end, and I hope you enjoyed this video. Next week I plan to do birds in watercolor paint, so stay tuned. Thanks for watching.
It's in the system, it's in our blood. You cannot keep me from looking for love. Don't wanna hide it, ain't gonna lie. I'm on the run till the day that